A little light dispels much darkness. They say if you see something, say something, and that sounds really obvious if you're talking about a package at the airport, but what about when I'm talking about my gut, trusting myself, standing up for my boundaries? When does that need to be addressed, and at what point do I need to speak up? Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words may never hurt is wrong. Words can hurt. And not only that, they can leave scars and wounds that are harder to heal from than physical ones. After going through years of trying to escape and successfully escaping abuse, I was able to really get an insider's view on what's being done and what still needs to be done in the Orthodox Jewish community. I started off by speaking with representatives and members of the Jewish community and was really surprised to see that there's already some things that have started being done. For example, there's an increase in rabbis who are going to get degrees in counseling, and that rabbis are initiating prenups that are according to Jewish law before marriage, and that they are also encouraging premarital discussions. Some classes are being taught to brides and some in high schools. However, there's still so much lacking. When a woman goes to get a religious divorce, she's not allowed to bring a representative with her, and no one is obligated to let her know what she's signing. Also, there's no education being offered to the youth, younger than high school and even in many high schools, about what a healthy relationship looks like, what abuse looks like, and how to avoid it. There are many reasons for this. The fact that Jews for thousands of years have had to rely on themselves to solve problems big and small within their own communities has put them in a place where they're really just used to that. Another reason is that it's really hard to admit that you're not doing something right. It's hard for me, it's hard for everybody. And then to admit that you have to surrender power and allow people to go and to seek help in other places than yourself is also very humbling and difficult. Some of the things that need to be done, primarily educating the youth in the prevention of abuse and what healthy relationship looks like, has come across as something that's very opposite to the environment that these schools and communities want for themselves and for their children. I do believe that since we are all on the same page that this is wrong and that it needs to be helped and needs to be treated and solved, what we really needed to do is to realize that it was just a misunderstanding, that the education that needs to be brought into the schools is not an education to teach children about abuse, but rather teach them about what healthy relationships look like. I think it's important for these members of the community to understand what mental abuse truly is. Timothy J. Legg explains in What Are the Short and Long-Term Effects of Mental Abuse what mental abuse looks like. It can be anything from gaslighting to degrading words to isolating a person, making them doubt their own reality, and that the short-term effects can include things like physical aches and pains, confusion, and feeling hopeless. The long-term effects are quite severe and could continue without any end if they're not dealt with and there's no intervention. And those include chronic aches and pains, confusion, not knowing how to ever start or initiate or get into a healthy relationship, and even fibromyalgia. It's interesting to note that some people say that if you leave a marriage, you're hurting the children. But studies show, such as those by Samuel R. Amer in Mother's Way of Knowing, that one of the major reasons mothers actually left relationships was not because it was hurting them, but because they could see the negative effects that it was having on their children. And that's why they would leave the relationship and seek shelters. Another thing that's really important to realize is that the communities play a really big role in helping people to either heal or actually have more trauma. There was a large study done by psychologists worldwide and recorded in Heidi M. Ellis's book, Religious and Spiritual Abuse, that this is a global problem and that most people who try to escape these kind of abuses are really met with adversity in their own communities. Instead of getting the support they need, there's a lot of victim blaming, support of the abuser, and isolation, which causes secondary trauma. Another thing that I think is really important is that these teachings are not only opposite of what is being taught in school, but they're absolutely congruent with what's being taught in schools. First of all, there's already classes teaching children what safety looks like, and to include into those classes not what abuse looks like, but how to deal with negative emotions and how to protect and to keep our own boundaries is something that's absolutely just positive. Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson says in Breaking Through the Borders that Simcha Peretz Geder, meaning happiness breaks through all boundaries. We don't need to be bringing in negative influences or even negative vibes into our schools and our community to be able to solve this problem. We actually have to just bring in more joy. Show a child what healthy looks like and help them to in a healthy way deal with their emotions. This will hopefully in turn break all of these cycles of abuse and help us to not have to even deal with that in the future. Imagine if each of us took upon ourselves one thing to try to help to break this cycle and to make this better. Imagine what the world could look like if just each person would reach out to another, to a victim, and say, "You're not alone." Or to teach their child or their student how to deal and cope with anger in a way that they're not suppressing it, but using it to make the world a better place, to empower them to make change, and to seek justice. If each of us just did our part, hopefully we would never even have to know what abuse was. A little light dispels much darkness. Thank you.